Why is your three-stage revenue system bleeding money? That's the question we're going to be asking in this video. The companies that I work with have traditionally three revenue departments: marketing, sales, customer success. That's nothing new. They all have usually one thing in common. They're all hardworking, they're all intelligent, and they want to succeed. But I find time and time again that they struggle to hit the targets and grow because they're bleeding money from parts of their system that they often can't see. So what we're going to do in this video is look at some of the reasons why that's happening. And in this video, what I'd like to do is put ourselves in the position of the buyer, the people you're selling to, not from our perspective, but from their perspective. And to do that, I've put together a number of stages that I believe most buyers are going through. Come along with me and you tell me whether this makes sense in your scenario, in your business. So, stage one, we have the customer realizing that they have a problem. Now, that realization might be as a result of some branding that you put out, some marketing, some advertising, but quite often they've been thinking about this issue themselves. And this is the stage of product market fit. Stage two. Once they've realized that they've got a problem, they start to go out in the marketplace to look for vendors who can potentially help them solve this problem. And clearly at this stage, marketing is doing a lot of its good work to put content out there, to put advertising out there, to put case studies out there to attract the buyer and to help them engage with you as the vendor. But again, let's remember, we're viewing this from the customer's perspective, not from yours. So what happens next? Once the potential buyer has interacted with your marketing people and maybe some of your early stage salespeople, they start to define the commercial value. Now, they don't get there until they've selected some key vendors, and let's assume that you're one of these vendors, but you're not the only one. And at this stage, quite often, as you know, there's more than one person involved in the buying process. Back here at stage one, there's often only one. But when we get to stage three, we have usually a whole commercial buying unit that have to be convinced that your solution is the best one. So what's happening here is, from their perspective, they're building a business case, they're building commercial value so that when and if they do invest, they know what they're going to get for their money. And this is one of the stages which I find can be problematic. Now, clearly here, we're in the domain of the sales department. Sales are helping vendors define commercial value. Now, of course, one of the problems today is that buyers have got access to so much information, they often know what their commercial value is. And it's it can be a difficult time here for the salesperson to help in that process. Stage four. Assuming they're happy with you as a vendor, with your products, with your services, and they've been comforted that the business value that they need to achieve can be based on the interaction they've been having with you and your salespeople. And at stage four, they get to the point where they decide that they're happy to make a commitment. And of course, this is the the sales process to get from warm to hot. And all of the sales skills that your salespeople employ are clearly vital at that stage. Now, assuming that they make the commitment, they sign on the dotted line, they sign the invoices. The next stage from their perspective, remember this is from their perspective, is that they're looking to confirm what they've purchased. So they've signed here, but they want a confirmation, because quite often the champion buyer, the champion buyer at this stage is probably at his most nervous, because they've made the commitment and he or she at this stage wants to make sure that they're going to get the value that they defined and agreed with you that they would get at this stage here. So this is stage 5. And next stage is, very common, onboarding and the experience. Now, from their perspective, from the buyer's perspective, right here at this stage, they're very wide-eyed as to whether or not you are going to be a good vendor, whether you are going to deliver what they expected, and what that experience is going to be like for them and the other people that you're going to be interacting with within their organization. Once they've actually been onboarded, they've been consuming your product. Now that's either over a number of weeks, months, depending on how your product or service is consumed and how long it takes to deliver the value. They're at some stage, they're looking to be convinced, and they want proof that the value that they defined here and agreed here has actually been delivered. And the chief buyer at this stage, he or she is going to have to go back and prove to the board, the chief exec, the founder, and the buying committee that you as a vendor have actually helped them to deliver value. Now they will have the product and services, but the question is, have they achieved the value that they were expecting? Now, clearly, if that's gone well and it's all tick at this stage, then the final stage, where customers are looking to potentially renew, upgrade, and expand, again, from their perspective, if they've got proof of value and they're able to go back to their buying committee and prove that that value has been achieved, then here renewal is probably very easy, because they don't want to lose the value, and they'll be very open for upgrading discussions and potentially for expansion discussions, because they've definitely got the value. They understand who your company are. They're confident with your company, and at this stage, they're usually very happy to renew, upgrade, and expand. Okay, so I can almost hear you asking yourself, yeah, makes sense. So what? What's the problem? Well, what I find when I'm coaching and consulting with B2B organizations is that, yes, everyone nods their head to the steps that the normal traditional buyer will go through in interacting with your company. But then when I ask, okay, so how well are we doing at capturing information and supporting these steps from a process and a systems point of view? And I look straight away to probably 3 key areas. You tell me whether this makes sense to you and whether you've got this covered. This area here, defining commercial value. Many organizations will say, yeah, of course we do that. Our salespeople, in order to win the deal, we have to help the client, the customer, build commercial value. But then when I ask, okay, do we have data that actually demonstrates the commercial value to the customer rather than to us? And if you have a very clean CRM system, yes, there will be data there, but we all know how challenging it can be to have consistent capturing of data here at this stage. So I often find this, if it's captured, it's not captured from the customer's perspective. And if it's not really captured from the customer's business value, business case perspective, such that they would recognize it, when we get down here to stage 5, we can have another problem. Because this is when the champion buyer is probably most nervous. And if all he's got is a confirmation that he's buying XYZ technical products, bits and bytes, etc., but he's not hearing that you're gonna help him get this, which is here what he's agreed with his buying committee, with his seniors. So again, and this is the stage where there's a handover between this is sales, this is marketing, and this tends to be customer success. Sometimes this is sales, it just depends on how your organization is configured. But there's often a challenge here if this hasn't been written down, because this is fundamental for this stage here. And this is where we start to get into more problems, I find. Because if this is not captured and tracked and measured, and there's resource put into really being clear about what the business value to the customer is, there's a challenge here in being explicit to the customer service team as to what is going to be expected here as a proof of value. And this is where the make or break is for renewals and upgrades. And as we all know, this is the most profitable stage of the customer lifecycle. But it really rests on being able to demonstrate proof of value. The other great thing about proof of value here is it supports, does it not, our marketing folks in attracting more of the best ICPs that are relevant for getting the value that they want. So the more demonstration of good case study value here, the more our marketing teams are going to be able to attract the right buyers. So that's where I would ask you, and I would challenge you, how well are you capturing the data and putting resource aside to help your clients define value and be clear about the value from their perspective? And then how well are you tracking that and capturing it there and being explicit about what's expected, so that your customer service teams, when they come into the onboarding experience, know what your customers are looking for and what they're expecting. Because once this has been delivered, then it's all systems go here. So that's what I would ask you now to think about in your own revenue system. How well are you capturing these key stages? I actually find, if I'm honest, I find that quite often this stage is just non-existent. And here I find often there's confirmed purchase orders and the spec, the technical spec, but I often find there isn't a clear definition as to what the customer and the client said that they were expecting and they were signing off on back here. And those are I would say, some of the key areas where the bleeding, this is where the bleeding is happening. But that might not be the case in your business. So if this discussion about how customers interacting with your organization from their perspective has got you thinking, then give me a follow and subscribe. If you'd like to find out what's missing potentially in your revenue system, then I've put together a very easy to fill in app at revenuejourneymap.com. I'll attach a link below this video that you can go and use it. It's only got 8 questions and it gives you quite a little bit of detail about what we've been discussing here in this video today. And if you'd like to find out what a revenue system looks like that is fully connected in this way and starts to operate like the way I like to describe it, as a flywheel, I'm gonna give you the case study of the business that I had played a big part in, that exited for 600 million, where we pretty much replicated this way of operating from the customer's perspective. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to meeting you again at the next one. Thank you.